Hello, everybody. I'm so glad that you are here with us today. I am speaking to a wonderful person today. I am speaking to a wonderful person that I have been excited to talk to today. We're here for another episode of an Angry Black Woman podcast. So, like, subscribe, and follow. We're on several podcast social media platforms. Um, and I am here with a woman by the name of Dr. Emily Levy, and we are going to explore learning disorders. So, like, subscribe, and follow. Thank you for joining me, Doctor. I'm just so excited that you are here with me today. How are you doing?
I am doing great, and thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yeah, it is a very important conversation. Uh, so, first of all, my first question, because I want to get it right, because we're not living in 1960 anymore. Is it learning disorder, disability, challenge? What is it? What are we calling it now? Because I want to be right.
Sure, I think there are different terms that are used. Some use the term learning disability, some use learning disorder. A lot of times it has to do
Mhm.
with the evaluator and the language that they choose to use.
Okay, so they're both okay. We won't be offending anyone if we use those two.
Correct.
All right, that's important because we want to get the word out uh, correctly. So I want to tell you that Dr. Emily Levy is the founder and director of EBL Coaching. It is a specialized tutoring program that offers individualized one-on-one home, virtual, and on-site instruction. And it is research-based, multisensory techniques are used, and um, there's a STARS. We're going to get her to tell us more about it. STARS, multisensory math. Multisensory math program helps students develop stronger understanding of core math concepts, including addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and fractions. And there are workbooks. She wrote these workbooks herself, y'all. She's a published author. And Dr. Levy is highly experienced. That's why I wanted her on this show. She is a graduate of Brown University. She received a master's and her doctorate, but she received a master's in special education and her doctorate from Nova University in Florida. And she won, she did a 5-year research study developing an alternative strategy for teaching reading comprehension, and she won 5th place, y'all. Okay. She is Westinghouse Science and Talent Award for this research. That's what she got. All right. So you answered my first question. All right. But I want to tell you, Doctor, that learning disabilities is something that I have been passionate about for pretty much all my life, at least the last 30 years. When I was younger, and we talking about, in the 60s and 70s, my father was a teacher, and my siblings and I, it was important to him that we could read for a lot of different reasons. And one was race related.
Mm.
He came from a time where, we couldn't learn to read. And so it was important that we read. So we could read and write very well before we went to school. And so my, I, okay, I got promoted halfway through the year from kindergarten to first because I was distracting the rest of the children I was talking. And my father got with my teacher and they made a plan to promote me. But it wasn't until my son was in elementary school and I was trying to get him to read. I was trying to get him, and I saw it, but the teachers acted like they didn't see it.
Mm.
And so I was a big mama lion. I was acting up. I was acting up. And it wasn't until he was leaving to go to junior high that they finally went on and tested him. And he came back that he was dyslexic. And my mother and I could see it as plain as yesterday. My mother and I kind of looked at each other and we did a sigh. And she said, "So that's what's been wrong with me?"
Mm.
And I said, "Yeah, Mama, that's what was wrong with me too." Because I could do it, but it was difficult. I had headaches and I was reading things over and over and over again for understanding. It took me a long time to get the thing read. I like to read, but it just was so tiring. And when they said my son had dyslexia and they told me what type and explained it all, it was like my mother and I both said, "So I'm not dumb."
Mm.
And and I said, "No, Mama, apparently we not, you know." So I want you to tell me and everybody, tell us all, is that still occurring? I know that was, 25 years ago, 55 years ago, but is that still occurring that children are going undiagnosed? Um, tell me about that.
I think that's a great question, and I think that's happening less and less. I do think there's much more awareness about dyslexia, ADHD, other learning disabilities, and the idea of being evaluated at a younger age is becoming more and more common. That doesn't happen in every school or every school district. And what I always tell parents is that they know their child best. And if something doesn't seem right, if they're struggling with their homework, if they're struggling to learn how to read, if they're not doing well in school, they really need to be their child's advocate. They should speak to their child's teacher. And if they're really struggling, they should request that evaluation. It's free through public schools, and every child is entitled to an appropriate education. So I think as a parent, being proactive makes a tremendous difference in helping their child and helping them to ultimately succeed.
So how do you get that parent? Because I have worked in the school system. I would work with reading interventionists to assist them in helping children learn to read. And it never failed. I would always have in one of my small groups a child who wanted to read better. And I could tell, because now I'm armed with this information, I could tell that they had dyslexia. And I would speak to the specialist that was over all the teachers, and they would tell me that this child had dyslexia, but it was hard to get the parent to engage, be part of the village, instead of just leaving it up to the school to do everything. And the kid would say to you, "Yeah, my mama said I need to do that. We and I'm speaking like the child now, okay.
Right.
My mama said I ain't need to do that. That I need to do and go wherever it was they were going, somewhere fun." So what are some of the things that I could say when I'm, because I still work with children, I teach dance classes, and and it's important that they read in dance class too,
Sure.
because we have to learn our terminology. So what is it when I see it? What are some things that I can say gently to parents when I see that they're not really engaged that way? What are some things that I can say?
Sure. Well, I think for a long time there was sort of a negative connotation with having a label, so to speak, that something was wrong with their child or it was sort of negative. But really what we've come to realize is that having dyslexia, having ADHD is a gift. There's so many individuals that are the brightest people in the world that have dyslexia or ADHD. They're business leaders, they're visionaries, they're entrepreneurs, they're critical thinkers. but getting through school is the challenge. And if they don't feel successful in school to some degree, they're going to have poor self-esteem. They're not going to achieve what they could otherwise. So if a parent can arm their child with the right support and the right services, again, free of charge, provided by the school, it will help them to achieve their potential, to thrive in life, and to really become something so much greater if they can get that support in school early on.
So it's okay for me to say, you know, I noticed this, that, and the third, and why don't you check with the school? Is that rude?
Absolutely not. I think
Mhm,
it is something you should absolutely say. And of course, we want to
mhm.
approach it using the right words like you did. But I think it's so critical that kids receive this support and receive it as early as possible before those demands of school just continue to increase.
If I'm working with my children before I'm sending them to school and I notice things, um, when we first get to the school, say for like kindergarten, can I start saying it then? You know, I was working with my child and I noticed these things. When is the best time in that first year, or should we do it in that first year and say, could you test them?
I would bring it up immediately. If your child is entering kindergarten and they have no knowledge of the names of the letters, no knowledge of the sounds that go along with the letters, you've tried teaching that to them, but they're just not grasping it. Sometimes if they have issues with speech when they're younger, that can also be correlated with reading and learning challenges. So if they're not able to write any letters or numbers, or they write them backwards, or they just scribble, I would absolutely bring that up to the teacher immediately. The teacher might say, let's give it a little bit of time. It could be developmental. But in the first few months of school, if they're not progressing and they're not learning those foundations, I would absolutely jump right in and have the evaluation done, because the earlier we can get those services and supports in place, the better it'll be for the child.
Mhm. Okay. Now, tell me about learning disabilities as a whole. Like, for example, are they all the same? What are they? What are the, I know dyslexia, I know ADD, and I know ADHD, but I know there must be more. And if you got one, do you have them all?
Sure. Well, there are many different types of learning disabilities. There's many different types of attentional challenges. Sometimes there is what they call comorbidity, where someone might have ADHD and dyslexia, for instance, but not
Mm,
necessarily. There are many individuals that just have one of them. But to give you some examples, within the category of learning disabilities, dyslexia, of course, is connected more with reading. Dyscalculia is a disorder
mm,
when it comes to math. Dysgraphia has to do with writing. ADHD is more executive functioning, more attentional challenges. Then there's speech and language difficulties. There's autism. So there's so many different types. And that's where the evaluation comes in, and doing that comprehensive assessment, engaging what that individual's specific challenges are.
awesome. And they have tests that can test all of that.
Correct.
Okay. Is it one test that just tests it all, or the test is based on what the parent or what the teacher is noticing, and so you test for what you think it is based on that?
That's usually up to the evaluator, but typically it's a mix of different batteries of tests. And then based on everything put together, they come up with the conclusion from there.
Okay. Oh, that's very interesting. Now, back to my comment that my mom and I had when we uncovered my son's dyslexia. Is it really hereditary, or is it something that's learned in families?
Has been a lot of research that says it can be hereditary. So there are many parents who sort of pass it along to their child. And what I see all the time is when a child, like almost like what you mentioned, when a child gets diagnosed, it's like an aha moment for a parent. That's why I had all those struggles through school. This all makes sense. So I think back in the day, like we were saying, these diagnoses were not as common, so kids just struggled through school. They just weren't good at that subject, but there was no diagnosis, no remediation, no real treatment for it. So it absolutely is. There's a lot of research that tells us it definitely can be hereditary, and there are many parents who also have the same challenge that their child has. Not always, but many.
So it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something in our DNA, and we just need to help our child of each generation, our children of each generation, load them with whatever the tools is that we learned from our time, work with the teachers to give them new tools and just grow on that with each generation. Would that be a good way to say it?
Definitely. Great way to say it.
Okay, awesome. Oh, I'm learning so much.
Happy to hear that.
Okay, now, um, so then I wanna talk about this because we now have a national stage more than we've ever had. And we got it at the Democratic National Convention when Gus Waltz just exclaimed his pride for his dad. And so then we all learned about Gus Waltz and his challenges. And I just felt like in that moment, I, I actually said it out loud. Now people will pay attention to learning disorders. Now they will pay attention. I mean, we've had pockets of, I think it's Melissa McCarthy and some others with the autism and, you know, different pockets with different situations, but it's it's always a really hard struggle. My oldest daughter, not only did I figured out that she had dyslexia too, but she was helped because she became deaf when she was 2.
Mm,
And she already, again, my dad was still around then too. So, you know, she had this wonderful language, speaking in 2 years old and speaking in these perfectly, you know, designed sentences and all of this. And she was starting to read. Okay. And so she had lots of language. And then she was 2 and she started gibber gabbering,
mm,
gibbering. And the doctor said, no, 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 she's fine. And we said, no, something's wrong with that. And so, again, you're talking 36 years ago,
mm,
they just kind of said, well, just keep doing whatever it was you were doing.
yeah.
So we kept doing what we do. And she went through speech therapy. And I heard you say that earlier.
Mm,
She went through speech therapy. And so she kind of had an up on my son because she had been having speech therapy since she was 2. And, all these organizational skills we were putting in place for her so
mm,
that she could be successful. And of course, being an African American woman, I needed to build um, courage and I needed to let her know that she was going to be okay. And I said, when she could understand, no one's going to make it easy for you.
mm,
You're African American,
yeah.
you're female, and you're deaf.
Yeah.
And people like to call deaf people dumb,
Hmm.
and you're nowhere near that. So we're gonna figure out how to help you with this so that you know who you are. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman today. And people love that she's so organized. But it came from the being deaf and all of that.
Mm,
So we have this big platform with Gus Waltz, and I was trying to find out exactly what he had, and they just call it nonverbal language, learning disorder. Would you tell us what that is? Make
sure.
that make sense for us?
Sure. Well, first off, I think it's really great that there is this awareness now. Paris Hilton actually just recently also came out saying she has ADHD. I actually wrote an article in response to that article about how great it is that she came out. So I think the more of these sort of celebrities, so to speak, and politicians that come out and acknowledge what they have, the better, and the more it becomes normalized. A nonverbal learning disability is really it often parlays itself into struggles with language, especially abstract language, really understanding nuances, understanding inferences. There's a lot of social challenges, picking up on cues, on social cues, and really understanding what someone's saying, understanding jokes. So those are common challenges that individuals with nonverbal learning disabilities tend to have. For a while, it wasn't really diagnosed much, and then there was more awareness about it, but that's typically what a nonverbal learning disability entails.
Okay, thank you for that. Because I said, I don't know what that is. And I was happy you were going to come on the show because I wanted to understand that better. Now, a couple of my friends' children have, um, is it called Asperger's? Asperger's, is that also a learning disability?
Yeah, so Asperger's is what kind of the higher functioning end of the autism spectrum. So it's still part of the autism spectrum, but they're much higher functioning. So there are some individuals with autism that are nonverbal, that can't speak at all, that need to be in a kind of a specialized environment sometimes because they are have such limited skills. Typically, those with Asperger's, like I said, are higher functioning. They tend to also struggle with language. They tend to usually, very often, they're really good at the mechanics of reading and spelling. They can read and spell really complex words. But if you ask them to comprehend a 3-page passage, they're completely at a loss. So comprehension, inferences, abstract language tends to be very challenging. Organizing their thoughts on paper tends to be challenging. A lot of times they have executive functioning difficulties, things like planning, organization, time management. But the short answer is it's on the higher end of the autism spectrum.
Okay, okay. So tell me about um this, and I don't know if I was right to do this, so I'm glad you're telling me so I can pass on information to parents that I work with their children. When my children were young, and it came out because of my son,
Mm.
um, one of the things I learned to do was to color coordinate their journal or their agenda. And what that seemed to do was help keep them focused. It also seemed to help them better able to, be better able to get through the assignments because it not only was it color coded, but my added thing to that was once you do it, put a check mark on it so mama can help you go through, make sure it's what it's supposed to be. So tell me what we can do at home with our children to help them be successful. First of all, tell me, was I on the right path with that? Because I was making it up as I went along.
Well, first off, you were absolutely on the right path. Color coding is a strategy that we often use for many kids, which is really helpful. And most importantly, it worked for your kids. Sometimes there's an amazing strategy and you try it with your child and it just doesn't work. So it's really
Mhm.
important. Sometimes there's some trial and error with seeing what works, what doesn't work. But in terms of what parents can do at home, there are many things. Sometimes, of course, not every parent works well with their child, which is sometimes I hear that they will butt heads sometimes. But as long as I think it's approached in the right way from a place of love and support. The hope is that your child will be open to some of these suggestions. But there are things that parents can do. For example, setting up a study space for their child, a designated desk area, which could be in their room. It could be a table in a common area like a kitchen. But there should be one spot that's designated for them to do their homework. They should also try to pick a designated time. It may change a little bit, but some kids work really well right after school. Some need a snack break, some like an athletic break, and then they work later in the day. But identifying the time of day that your child is going to work and try to be consistent with that. Also make sure that they always have all of the supplies that they need, pens, pencils, paper, a computer if they need that, highlighters, whatever it is, should be fully stocked in the area where they do their homework. If they do it in a common area like a kitchen table, parents might want to create a little caddy that they carry back and forth that contains all of the supplies that they need so that they don't have to stop midway through an assignment, roam around looking for the supplies they need, get distracted, see the phone ringing or whatever it is, and then try to come back to their work. So those are some tools that parents can reinforce at home to help with some of these organizational and study skills.
That's awesome. Okay, so at least I did something right. Okay.
Did a lot right. I can tell you're a great mother. You did a lot right.
Right. So tell us about EBL learning and how you help your families. Just
Sure.
I want everybody to hear about EBL.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, at EBL Coaching, we specialize, as you mentioned earlier, in providing one-on-one tutoring to students who have special education needs. We work with kids as young as the preschool level, and we go all the way up through the adult level. And we work on all academic skills, reading, writing, spelling, math, executive functioning, organizational skills, all using the right combination of research-based multisensory techniques that are very much individualized to the needs of each student. Many years ago, we only did in-person tutoring in our local New York, New Jersey area. But for the past several years now, we've really been able to expand with our virtual platform. We now help kids not just nationally, but worldwide. I met with a boy from Indonesia not that long ago, and really all over. The timing was interesting on that one. But yeah, all over the world. And it's given us the opportunity to give kids access to these kinds of individualized services that they may not have in their local area. So that's really been an exciting way to expand it. But
Oh,
usually
wow.
start with an evaluation and come up with that real custom tailored plan to meet the needs of each child.
I'm so glad you said that online because I was going to ask you, how could someone here in Texas connect with you? And so you said online, you're nationally online. So that's international. You're internationally online. So that's awesome.
Yes.
Now, tell us about your books. Because you are a published author, we've got to tell us about your books and where we can buy them.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I've written a series of workbooks that are designed to help students build their academic skills. They really came from a need. I couldn't find anything out there that would not just teach strategies to students, but give them enough practice and repetition to really grasp the strategies. So I have 3 different workbook series. One is called Strategies for Study Success, which is a 17-part student workbook series, and that teaches students specific strategies for reading comprehension, writing, test taking, note taking, and executive functioning skills. Then there's the Flags and Stars Orton Gillingham student workbook program, and that's more for sort of phonics, for teaching students how to decode words, how to spell words. And then the other workbook series is the Flags and Stars Multisensory Math program. And that's really great for kids who struggle with foundational math concepts. It's very multisensory. There's lots of hands-on tools and manipulatives that are integrated, but we just focus really on those foundational skills of addition, subtraction, double-digit addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, fractions, a lot of those foundational skills that students struggle with. And then my latest pet project is I've actually been working on a software program with my daughter who's in high school, which is a great software program to help kids build their writing skills. And we've integrated programming to score their writing and provide direct feedback to the students to really help them improve their writing skills. So that's been something that we're piloting now. That's been really
Oh,
exciting.
that is awesome. That is awesome. And then to have that young entrepreneur working with you, I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
it's been a lot of fun.
Now, tell us, Doctor, what is the most important thing for us to take away from our discussion today? If you could take all of the things we discussed, if you could narrow it down to 1 or 2 things that you would want us to take away from this, what is that?
I would say be proactive and not reactive. As a parent, like I mentioned earlier, you know your child better than any teacher, better than any doctor. And if something doesn't seem right, Don't wait, take action, reach out to your child's school, their teacher, their doctor. It's okay to work as a team, express your concerns, and then really always keep an eye on your child. Even if they're doing well right now, next year might be a whole other ball game. So just always be on your child's side, always be their best advocate, because no one is going to be as good as you are at that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, tell us again how we can contact you, like website, social media, things like that.
Sure, absolutely. I would say the best place is our website, which is eblcoaching.com. E like Edward, B like boy, L like Larry. There's lots of articles that I've written. You can see the workbooks that I've written and lots of information about our services and everything that we do. We also have Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok channels under EBL Coaching. It's been fun making those TikTok videos. My teenage daughters have a few things to say about how to do those, but I have a lot of educational videos on different topics for parents and different learning challenges and so forth. So I would say those are really the best ways to reach us.
Awesome. Okay. Now, I do want to thank everyone for joining us on an Angry Black Woman podcast. We're looking forward to our next episode. It's going to be something good because next month is adoption month. And, we always talk about adoption next month. So be looking out for that. Now, you can find us here on YouTube, but within the next 48 hours, you'll be able to find us also pretty much on any podcast listening place in any platform, and on social media. We're on Instagram. We're not on TikTok because I have a hard time doing TikTok for my dance company. So I haven't figured out that TikTok yet. Um, Remember to like, subscribe, and follow. And until next time, hashtag masterpiece, not angry. We will see you next time on Angry Woman Podcast. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Levy, for joining us today.